I have reviewed hundreds of free VST plugins on this channel, and I typically rate them 1 through 5. 5 being the best, 1 being the worst, or in the rare case, I do rate them a 5 plus, which basically means how is this plugin free? However, I've never really explained my rating rules or guidelines, and there's mainly 3: usefulness, uniqueness, and sound quality. Also, as a side note, if you can think of a word that begins with the letter U for sound quality, let me know. I was trying to think of okay, unique, useful, something like a third U, so it'd be good alliteration. But anyway, that's my main rating rule. So there's 3 guidelines when it comes to free VST plugins. 1, how useful is it, right? Like I said, I reviewed so many on this channel, and I'd say about 90 to 95% of the plugins that I review, I actually end up deleting. I really just download them. I'm like, okay, let me try it out. Let me test it out before I do a video on it. Because there's, I'm not gonna lie, even some plugins I've downloaded that I've tested out. I'm like, you know what? I don't even think I want to do a video about this plugin. It's just not useful or whatever. So I always think to myself, could either I or somebody else use this in a track? There's a lot of plugins out there that are kind of cool and unique and fun, but is it actually useful when it comes to producing music? In case you didn't know, when it comes to me, all the plugins I use are actually free except 2. 1, Serum, the main synthesizer. It's kind of like the bread and butter when it comes to making electronic music. And the second is the Fab Filter Set. Besides that, I'm not exaggerating, every other plugin I use is free, right? So 1, is it useful? 2, is it unique? Now, like I said, I've reviewed so many plugins on this channel that there's, I use this line a lot. There's a bajillion piano plugins, guitar plugins out there. And even now, as time has gone on, I've noticed there's been more, like anything, right? There's been more and more free VST plugins coming about, right? More and more of them all the time. So the amount of reverb ones I've seen out there, EQ ones, I don't know, the list goes on. However, there's a bunch of plugins that are super unique in their own category, right? So the second thing for me that I usually think of is, okay, how unique is this plugin? Is this plugin a standalone plugin that you're like, wow, it's super hard to find a plugin that does what this plugin does, and yet it's still free? That is a big, big category when it comes to me in terms of the second point. I always ask myself, okay, with all the plugins out there that exist, how hard is it to find a plugin that does what this plugin does? And then the third one, which I'm not gonna lie, which is kind of interesting for me, is actually a lot lower on the scale, ironically, is sound quality. Now, I know that sounds weird. I think for a lot of people, you'd probably think it would be the reverse. You'd probably think sound quality would be the top one. And yes, there is arguably one of the most famous quotes in music production, is you cannot polish a turd. What that means is if you get, let's say, a bad recording of something or a bad sample, even if you're like a wicked good producer and all this kind of stuff, there's really, to an extent, and you could argue on that extent, there's an extent of how much you can really polish, so to speak, a bad sample. Even still, though, I will say that when it comes to a lot of free VST plugins, yes, there are some that the sound quality is a lot better than others, but the hard part is there's so many plugins out there that even if, let's say, you get one that's not maybe the best sound quality, sometimes that's actually what you want. So let's say if you're making lo-fi music, for example, I've reviewed a bunch of lo-fi plugins. If, let's say, you have a very polished, well-produced plugin that has a phenomenal, saxophone sound, that might actually not be what you want for the lo-fi song. If anything, you want something different, right? And of course, don't get me wrong, sound quality is incredibly important, right? Like, use some examples, right? Because to make it more relevant, for example, in my opinion, the best, and I have to think about this, but I think the best sound quality overall, or one of the best sound qualities when it comes to free VST plugins, is the BBC Symphony Orchestra Discover plugin. It's insane, right? Also, Spitfire Audio Labs kind of worked with them to make it, so I'd even include that as well, the Labs program. Again, all completely free. The sound quality, insane. When it comes to other plugins, I might as well mention them. When it comes to being unique, Cloud Drum, for example, which is a steel tongue drum plugin, insane. There's very few of those, right? Especially with that sound quality. Alter Ego, which is a singing vocal synthesizer. Never seen any plugin like that. They could easily charge hundreds of dollars probably for alter ego, 100% free. And then useful, well, there's a ton of them. I do have a link list below in the description to my playlist of the best free plugins I've reviewed. It takes a lot. I think right now, let's see the exact time of this video. I think this may be, shoot, I should have checked. I think maybe like anywhere between, I guess, 60-ish, maybe give or take, 60-ish plugins. But like I said, on this channel, I don't know how many I reviewed, but I went through everything, hundreds upon hundreds, honestly, at this point. I've reviewed an absurd amount of plugins, and on top of that, I've also reviewed and downloaded some. Like I said, there's been a lot more than you think, where I've reviewed so many that now I'm even more picky, where like I will download sometimes 5 or 6 and be like, you know what? I would probably rank these a 1 or 2. I don't think they're that useful for anybody. They're not that unique, and the sound quality's kind of meh. I'm not going to review or do videos about any of these, because I feel like, at least to me, I'm kind of wasting your time if I, like, say, download a free VST plugin, do a video about it, and the main point of that video is me just saying, yeah, it's not that good. It's like, okay, wow, thank God I watched this video, right? And granted, like, yeah, in some cases, there is something to be said about doing a review of a product that's a bad product. But when something's free, it's kind of like, all right, like, if, let's say you're going to spend $100 for a product, it's worthwhile to watch a video review, even if that video says, you know what, it's not worth the money, it's not a good product. Then you're like, you know what, I saved $100. When something's free, it's like, all right, you can watch it. Okay, maybe you download it, you try it out, and then you're like, all right, maybe it's worth it, maybe it's not. Maybe to some people it is, maybe to some people it isn't, right? But at the end of the day, for me, I've been so picky. And so, like I said, definitely check that out. Listen below in the description. And for all those plugins, the main thing in terms of them being useful is all within those plugins, whether they are something when it comes to effects, percussion, vocals, synthesizers, the list goes on and on.